you very much. Thank you very much, Esther Jira. Welcome back to our today webinar. We are looking at management of loss, which is a very important lesson. And as you have seen on Amani, we have a vision to have holistic individual, community, and organization in Kenya and beyond. And somebody said, and that is Ajara Dokwa, unless you have a vision, you haven't begun to do the practice that make you great. And we want to become great as today we talk about things that are happening in our society today as we embark on making our society to become okay, even despite the losses that is part of our life. And that's why today we have one of our facilitators who is going to take us through this important course. You know, somebody said, once you are born, you are old enough to die. And therefore, in our society today, we are negotiating, managing various kind of losses. And today we are going to be helped in how we are going to deal with those kind of areas of losses. And we have Rona, who is going to guide us in all these. Karibu sana, Rona.
Thank you very much, George. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I want to take this opportunity to welcome everybody, the participants who have made time to join us today. We are entirely grateful for your time, and we hope that we can take you through what is very important today. And we will be talking about loss, and of course, managing loss during elections. And so, as mentioned, my name is Lorna. I am a counselor and a trainer. And also at Amani, I take care of the counseling department, which is where most of the in-person work, one-on-one work goes on. And so allow me to just start off as we move forward. Hoping that we will all just remember that experience of loss is not easy. So even as we walk you through today's presentation, one might get emotional, and please know that this is normal, given that the topic we are going to be going through is a very emotive one. And so just know that ACTI, as we are called in short, or Amani Counseling Center and Training Institute, is always open to offer psychosocial support whenever the need arises. And so allow me your time today to continue sharing how it is that we can manage ourselves when we encounter situations of loss. George, are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, I am.
You are?
But you have removed it, but it was there.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. It is there again now?
You're welcome.
Super.
Yeah, it is there again.
Asante sana.
Good to go.
Good to go.
Yeah.
All right. And so good afternoon once again. Today we're going to look at managing losses related to elections. It is one of those things that is happening to us today in the country, and whether we are aware of it or not, some of us are going through loss. Even those of us who are not very vocal about it, we are experiencing some sort of loss. And so before we do that, I just want to take a brief moment to take us through the background of the study of loss, which is known as thanatology. And thanatology is a scientific study of death. Of course, with death comes loss, and the practices associated with it, including the study of the needs of the terminally ill and their families, those who have life-limiting diseases. The field of thanatology, it has been evolving, it's ever evolving. And so the founder, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who we are going to borrow very heavily from during this presentation, was born in July 8th, 1926 in Switzerland. So we are going to be borrowing a lot from Kubler-Ross to take us through what is this that loss entails, and especially for today, loss related to elections. Of importance would be for us to understand the holistic aspects of death, which includes several issues that go on when we lose through death. Emotional issues, the physical issues, their mental, spiritual, behavioral, and even individual, societal, and cultural implications when a person goes through death or lost through death. Loss is loss, and we'll be seeing the different types of losses that we encounter even as we go along. So for us to understand, what is loss? What is loss? As research says, loss is the state of being deprived of something. So you're being deprived, you're being denied of something. As we move forward, loss can also be being without something that you already had. You had it before and it has been taken away from you. And so even as you're hearing those different descriptions, you can see it's not just death. This loss means different types of losses coming from different aspects of our lives. Loss is at the heart of life and growth, and therefore new life, change movement also comes as a result of losing something. Even as we are moving, we are changing. Right now, the situation is in the country is we are changing. We are moving from one regime to the other. And so something is happening. There's some loss being experienced, and we will see how. Loss is an experience that comes in multiple forms, as mentioned, and occurs throughout our life. And so even as we talk about loss, it is something that will happen throughout our life. And everyone is bound to face these losses, some or the other, caused by these various factors. No one is immune to loss. Each one of us, even the day we were born, we lost something. We lost being in that womb where there was warmth in our mother's womb, came into this world when we do not know. It was cold out here. And that's why when children are born, you hear them screaming, yeah? They cry. This place is not familiar. They've lost that comfort. So everybody will go through loss of some sort during our lifetime. So we are not immune to loss. And so when loss happens, a lot of us find ourselves unsure of what to do, what to say, what not to say, how to help. And that is normal. And so a lot of friction can come out of saying the right thing or saying the wrong thing at the wrong moment. But please know that loss is difficult. And so people are not normally sure. So even as they tell you things that make you unhappy, it's because they also don't know what to do or what to say. Whatever the type of loss, grief and mourning are a natural and necessary process. Once you've lost, you will go through the grief and of course the process of mourning for that loss. Whether you are aware of it or not, this is going to happen. And this process is important. It's necessary for one to emerge from the loss that you're experiencing in a healthy manner. And so as we move on, understanding that grief is an underlying cause of a lot and various mental health and other problems, mental health issues. Grief, if not experienced or processed well, can actually result in a lot of mental health and even physical, spiritual health issues. So it is important. Unfortunately, even today, lack of support to resolve the pain that comes from loss makes grieving very difficult. And so at Amani, we offer grief counseling because it's a necessity to help you process the loss that you are going through. A few definitions, we've mentioned that loss is a state of being deprived from something that you had or just being deprived. Grief is the emotional, cognitive, physical reactions following the death of a loved one. Not just the death, but any other loss that has significant implications to you as a person, you will still go through the same grief process. It's a natural response to loss. And so grieving is okay. Grieving is okay. And sometimes even culturally, we are told that, allow me to say this, men should not cry. And so I always wonder, as a person, when we tell our men not to cry, the African culture, what are we saying? They are not allowed to grieve, yet grief is a natural process. It's a natural response. And so you may want to think about that. Chronic grief, again, is where the duration of the grief is excessive and it is never ending. So if you're not able to process your loss and you're not able to grieve as expected, then you may end up with chronic grief. As we continue, anticipatory grief, remember we said when we lose someone or something, we are deprived, we grieve. And so there's also something, and then maybe a lot of us within the country are going through this anticipatory grief, which refers to a feeling of grief occurring before that impending loss has happened. This could have happened even before some of us went out to vote. Those who went out to vote, there was that anticipation. Is my candidate, my preferred candidate, going to make it through? I am doing my part. I have voted. I know that I don't have control over what is going to happen, but are they going to make it through? So typically impending loss could be, coming out of these election petitions. There are those who actually made it through. But with these petitions coming in, there's anticipatory grief. They're anticipating the loss that is coming through. There are those who are already putting through the petitions, and they are also wondering, they are going through this anticipation. Life-limiting illnesses, death of someone close due to illness, for example. And again, as I mentioned earlier, some of these things may trigger some emotions, but please know that it is normal. If we have people who are within us, family members, who are suffering, going through life-limiting diseases, some of us will go through anticipatory grief. And so with grief, there is the mourning. The mourning is the psychological process. It happens psychologically, where the bereaved person gradually undoes the bonds, the psychological bonds that bonded them to the person who they have lost, the deceased, to the object, the thing, the position that they have lost. And so you can see, it is important for one to recognize that it is normal to grieve. It is normal to go through the mourning process for you to get absolute healing or find a way of coping with the loss. And so as we continue, what are some of the types of losses? Right now, currently within the country, we have situations that are making us very agitated for some of us. Others are happy, they're celebrating. People are somewhere in between. They are going through anticipatory grief because some loss has already happened. There are those who have lost, there are those who have won. And so even within relationships, not just because of elections, we do have disagreements because we are different. And so it's crucial to find compromises that genuinely are acceptable to both parties. If this can happen at the bigger level, this would be lovely. We would avoid a lot of conflict that goes on. Compromises where neither party ends up with feeling that, they've had to forfeit their personal goals, their personal integrity is very important, not just at the primary level of the elections that we are talking about today, but within ourselves in the places where we interact with each other. Let's talk about some significant losses during elections. And so that we listen as we are interacting with each other, because this has to go on. People have lost hopes. They have lost their dreams, the plans. They're those people who had goals. When I get there, this is what I am going to do. I am going to get the position that I am vying for. I am voting for my candidate. And therefore, there were hopes and dreams, a lot of investment. Significant roles and positions have been lost. There are people who have lost, by the way. Those who are already in government are losing those positions, those roles that they had. And so loss is happening, whether there's the incoming government or one that is outgoing. Being in government also, career or employment. You had a career, 5 years, the other 5, you had a career for that moment. You were employed, you were earning. And so now what happens? For whatever reason, even if your term is over or you've been voted out, what happens to you? They have families who are depending on them. So you can see the loss is not just at that level, it's trickling down. And this you can also relate in our normal lives. Financial losses. People invested heavily. There are those who made a kill printing, but maybe their candidate has not won. They've printed those billboards, they've printed the t-shirts, and now they cannot even get money out of it. They can't be paid. There are those who actually went in as candidates. They have lost, and there are financial implications to this. One of the things that was also very real, it spoke loudly, was the voter apathy. There was very significant signs that people did not vote. And when I say people, mostly, I personally went into the voting center and I didn't see the youth. And I wondered, what is going on with them? But they spoke, even as I talked to them. You ask them questions. Maybe they were uncomfortable with the choices that were provided. Maybe some of them, there were legal or logistic barriers and personal issues, maybe registration problems. So it spoke very loudly, but you will never know unless you ask. But those are losses. So even as you see somebody quiet, they didn't vote, they are also going through some sort of loss. And you may need to find out if you are interested. So decline of health, again, can come up because of some of the issues that the aftermath of the losses that persons are experiencing, not just as a voter or the person who is, the person who was actually vying for the seats during election. So there are many, and these losses are not just significant to elections, these can also happen in our day-to-day lives. And so we have symbolic losses. Symbolic losses, again, happening right now. They are abstract, can't be seen or touched, and they are non-death losses. They are not related to death, but they cannot be seen. And so loss of expectations. People have lost their expectations. Loss of hopes and dreams. The roles that, I was now identified as Mheshimiwa, His Excellency. I am no longer His Excellency or Mheshimiwa. What happens? My identity changes. What is happening? Those are symbolic losses. All these things are happening as we speak. And so the awareness is important so that we can help understand what is happening around us, even with our youth in our homes, even with our partners, if maybe some of them were also vying within the country. You can see the emotive, the explosions. What is going on? Loss of a job, of course, loss of health. So symbolic losses also are there. And then we come to relationships, which again, as we continue to talk, we link the losses not just to elections, but our day-to-day lives. Families break up. There are people who feel rejected and abandoned, those who didn't make it through, even within their home turfs. There's excommunications from groups. Those of us who are on social media, we find people, and the word is used is they've lefted the group. They left or they're lefted. Yeah, people who say things which don't go well, you're quickly thrown out of the groups. And so these are losses. Relocations or transfers, also loss, and tension, and sometimes death of significant others also affect relationships. Loss of treasured objects. These would be valued properties or items through auctioneering. This is one of those things that might be happening in the near future after everything has settled and maybe things did not turn out or go well for you in terms of whatever your expectations were. Evictions are also loss of treasured objects. Fire, grabbing, robbery, these all affect people who are going through loss. And some of these losses you can see are not just loss because of death. So some aspects of loss that can come out would be self-image. The way you view yourself now changes. And so your self-esteem also can be affected. Self-respect may be because of rape, maybe not very significant in terms of the elections, but loss of ambitions and visions, incapacitation because of terminal illness and amputations, maybe paralysis, not very significant to loss of elections, but managing, just understanding that these are some of the things that can be aspects of self-loss. Major changes in your life, age, advancement, for example, can actually be looked at as self-loss. And so even as we continue, the most important one, physical, this is tangible objects, tangible people, such as persons, property, value, and I am talking about this because death of a loved one, and sometimes we've heard of some losses in death even during the elections. We have had people just disappearing and being found dead who were part of the process of elections. And so death is one of the most difficult losses to process. So very important for us to also understand that. Developmental, I've mentioned it briefly. This has to do with growth. Childhood, I talked about it. Loss to adolescent, there's a change. Integrity versus despair, where you have now aged and now you're looking at fulfillment. What have you fulfilled and what do you regret not having done? Retirement. There are people who are retiring. Did someone say something? There are people who are retiring. Kindly mute yourselves, or George, you can help me do that. Yeah, some people are outgoing, and so there's going to be a loss. Simple as graying of the hair, loss of body strength, menopause, body image. These can also be looked at as losses. And so with loss comes grief. And what is grief? Allow me to do that. Okay. As mentioned, with loss comes the grief. And grief is just, as Queen Elizabeth quoted, Queen Elizabeth II said that grief is the price we pay for love. And so without attachment, there would be no sense of loss. For you to experience that grief, it means that you were attached. And if you are not attached, then there's no loss. And so, for example, a family could be going through loss. They have all lost a parent, for example, but the way they grieve and mourn will definitely be different because of the attachment levels. Attachment is significant because if you're not attached, then you would not feel that sense of detachment. So very important to remember that. And so even as we continue, we must grieve to let go. Grieving is important. If we are able to grieve, then we are able to let go. We are able to grow and make future attachments, different attachments. And psychologists have long recognized that depression, mental health issues, is a frequent response to loss. And even currently, feelings of grief and depressions are common with post-election emotional responses. So in Kenya today, we are having a lot of people relating, grieving because of post-election losses, and it is expected. The stress levels and anxiety levels become a constant companion if grief is not addressed in an effective manner. So you can have the prolonged grief, and so it's important that people be given the chance to grieve. Why do people grieve? What are the goals of grief counseling? We offer that at Amani. Goals of grief counseling so that we can help people move, as mentioned, move from being stuck in the loss to experience change, the transformation. We are not taking the loss away, but we are helping you, providing you with a safe place to share your experience without being thrown out of a group. Share your experience, share your feelings, share your thoughts. Learn to live without that loss. Yeah, learn to live with your loss, even as you move forward, providing education about normal grieving. These are some of the things that we psycho-educate you as you come in for grief counseling. Teaches you about your thoughts and feelings and the necessity to grieve. Grief also teaches you to be patient, because there are some situations where you cannot turn the key back and you cannot change. For example, death, you cannot. But how do you live with that loss so that you can continue to progress, to grow? And so I want to take us quickly through the stages of grief. And this is by Kubler-Ross again, who talked about grief and how to manage and what stages people go through. And as you can see, there's anger, denial, bargaining, and then acceptance as we move through. But Kubler-Ross, in as much as she talked about these stages, it's important to be aware that not everybody will go through these stages the way they are. And so sometimes you may find yourself in denial, and I will explain that a little, and you go into anger, you bargain, and then find yourself back in denial, back in anger. So it's not linear. You keep oscillating between the stages. And Kubler talked about the 5 stages, which I would want to take you through. Just understanding, it's important to understand that if you're experiencing a loss, some of these stages, you'll be going through them consciously or unconsciously. And so just to understand that it is not abnormal to feel, to think that way, it is a normal way of grieving. And so the first stage is denial. In denial, it's not just refusing the loss that has happened. It can also feel very overwhelming. It's like the world has lost meaning. So what is the best thing that you can do? Deny, say, it is not happening. It is not happening. I cannot handle. So along with denial comes shock and numbness. So when you first hear, I remember the day that we were sitting in front of the television with my family, and the votes were being counted and you were seeing the results. I could imagine the kind of things that we're going through. So every time your preferred candidate's votes drop, you're like, no, something is wrong. Something is going on. And so you can imagine if you are stuck in denial through and through, the kind of anxiety that comes with it cannot be easy. So shock, the numbness that occur, and you can only let in so much. And so some of us decide to walk away so that we can handle just what we can handle. It is important, as the shock fades away, these feelings that have been suppressed will begin to surface. And therefore, when the feelings surface and you realize this is what is going on, the anger sets in. And so we begin to feel those emotions again after the loss, but now you are suddenly realizing that this is really happening. This is really happening. So you have anger. And so this anger may have no direction. And so you find people projecting on it, projecting, displacing their anger on people who are not even concerned. This is normal. The anger can be directed to various areas of your life. Your family, for example, your friends, yourself, or the deceased if the loss is through death, or the world in general. You can see the amount of emotions that are going on. I'm sure if I were to ask, I would get some interesting feedback about people who are experiencing anger, people who are vocal, even at that point when they're removing you from the groups or you're leaving the groups. This is what probably might be going on. The anger feels that one person feels is after loss. It is important to understand that anger is also part of grieving. It's an indication that the love that you had for that item or that person was strong. That is why you feel the anger when you get disconnected from them. But one thing I want us to remember today, underneath that anger is usually pain, the pain of the loss, and you don't know what to do. And so you do what it is that you can, and probably in an unhealthy way. Please always remember that underneath the anger, there is pain. This could help you be empathic and be able to support other people who are probably lashing out. It's a very necessary stage for the healing process. Anger as a strength can also be an anchor, giving you temporary structure, into this nothingness of the loss. As we continue with the stages, there's bargaining. When you are moved from denial and now suddenly you realize, wow, it has happened. I'm angry about it, but I can do nothing. Bargaining becomes the natural want to get to go back the way things were. You want to go back the way things were before the loss. You want your person back. You want this person who lost to be back in office because you put a lot of hopes in that position. When they get there, there were some hopes and promises that were made. You want your person who died to come back. Wishing becomes a way to try not to feel that pain of the loss. You remain in the past. When you're bargaining, you'll be asking, if only, supposing I had done this, what could I have done to help this happen? And so it helps us to avoid some of the hurt, albeit temporarily, and also closely with that bargaining is guilt. This is where sometimes you may find yourself feeling guilty, finding faults with yourself or with others, asking God, why even? You ask God those questions. You ask yourself. So bargaining also helps you in terms of managing that pain, although you know very well it's not going to undo whatever has happened in terms of the loss, may not be able to be undone. Now, when everything has happened, you have denied, you have become angry, you have bargained, and nothing is changing, the realization is setting in, you get into depression. And this depression is not a mood disorder. It is not the clinical depression that causes persistent feeling of sadness, loss of energy, loss of interest in anything. It is not classified there. For that to happen, you need to go for an assessment. This depression is just an integral part of healing because of the attachment that you had, and so you're feeling that loss. And it is important that, yes, we feel that loss, we feel the sadness, our thoughts come in, and we are able to experience that loss at a very deep level. And so while bargaining is focusing on the past, depression focuses on the present, the here and now. What is going on with me here? I have realized that it's not going to change. And so grief becomes very, very deep. It's felt at a very deeper level than it was before. And the permanence of death, if it is death, may feel like these thoughts of depressive, that deep sadness will last forever. But as mentioned again, depression is an integral part of healing. It allows you to see, to feel, to think, and be able to, try and do something to fix that depression after your loss. Depression at this stage is accepting the reality that our loved one is physically gone in terms of death. That position that I held is no longer there. It is not mine. I can only do 5 terms as a president, or 1 term, or 5, turn or tenor, but it is gone and it is permanent. It's not coming back. And so you will resist this new normal to try and maintain life as it was. But with time, you see that we cannot do that. And therefore, the depression sets in. The sadness of that reality sets in. As I mentioned, it's not a mental illness, but just an appropriate response to this great loss that one is experiencing. Lastly, the acceptance. Kubler-Ross did a lot of research on this work. And so even as I take you through the stages, maybe some of us are able to connect at a personal level, and so that you know that it is okay for someone to go through those stages of loss, of grief. Acceptance, again, should not be confused with one being okay with the loss. However, acceptance at this stage is acknowledging the fact that the person you loved, the thing that you loved, the role that you had is now not there. For the person, they are not physically there. Acceptance comes with a new painful reality. And so just understanding that even as you go to the stage of acceptance, it's not that you are okay. A new painful reality is actually coming through. We may never like this reality, but it is the one that we have to accept and learn to live with. The big change that has happened, we accept and we learn to live with, and we are able to start thinking of how is it that we can move on. It's not moving on, but it's not also the end. Remember, I said grieving, the process, the stages are not linear. And so you may find yourself, when you get to that acceptance level, you're back into anger again, because something maybe has happened. People who grieve, people who have lost, sometimes find themselves in that place where they had moved to acceptance, but when something triggers a memory, they go back to that loss that they had already experienced. So it can also be a new way to make connections, new relationships, and of course, listening to your own needs. You start to evaluate, what are some of the needs that I have? How do I move on? How do I live and continue to live? Simply meaning that living again. How do we do so even after we have completed our grieving process? And so, as we talked about the goals of grief, how do we then help ourselves, help another person to cope with this grief, to cope with the loss? It is important. We have healthy ways of coping. And there are some of us who cannot cope in a healthy way. And because we are in that denial space, we need to deny, to numb those shocks, the feelings. That happens. And so you may find that instead of being able to cope in a healthy manner, we don't have the capacity to do that. And so we end up coping in a way that is not healthy for us, which again is important to know that, yes, for example, if I'm feeling too much pain, I may want to numb my pain by going to drink alcohol, for example. And of course, with alcohol, we know if we continue to do that, you may get to the place where you suddenly start to have a dependency. But that is happening. And so some of the tips that we can have, think about healthy coping ways is allow yourself to grieve that loss. Don't deny it. Admit your feelings, your thoughts. Allow yourself to breathe, so to say. Try and name those feelings that you're, going through, your thoughts. This you can be helped even through grief counseling. Very important. That's what we take you through. Even just to help you again, stay connected. A lot of times when people are in the denial process, they withdraw. They withdraw from people. And so we have a lot of that going on. Those of us who are left in groups because we don't like what is happening, we are in that denial stage. And so it's important to stay connected, of course, with friends and like-minded people. If you feel that you are in the wrong group, you may want to just stay away, but seek people who can understand and validate your experience, your loss, what is happening to you. As you move further, you would also go out into nature. Nature has a way of boosting our moods. Of course, it's very cold right now, but still, find ways of taking good care of yourselves. If you stay cooped indoors because you're grieving, it might actually cause you to feel the negative emotions even more. So going outside there, doing something out there can also help you to manage, to cope with that grief. Focus on healthy living. This can restore your energy. Healthy living, getting enough sleep, eating well, getting some exercise done. This is important. Taking breaks, again, from news and politics. Time out. I do that all the time, and it helps me. I may call it denial, but at least I am allowed to let in just as much as I can handle at any given time. So let us take those breaks from the WhatsApp, from the Facebook. Avoid political misinformation. There's a lot of information going around, and sometimes when you read it, it provokes a lot of emotions for you. So avoid them. Limit the time that you spend out on social media. You have a choice. You have control over that. So let's try and see how we can cope in a healthy way. Embracing your values. Continue to take actions that are in line with your values. Yeah. Even as you're going through whatever it is that you're going through right now, your value systems, you can decide to not get shaken. And so, as opposed to going out there and causing havoc, you may choose to educate people, to create the peace, the calm that we are currently experiencing. And our prayer again is that we continue as a country to pray for our country, for peace, because that is important. Minimize your anxiety. Avoid speculation. Anticipatory grief. Avoid it. There's nothing you can do about it, by the way. You already exercised your right. For those who voted, grieving for what has not yet happened. Don't try, to predict the future. Only God knows the future. And so minimize that anxiety. Avoid that speculations. Be sensitive, tolerant. When you do that, it helps you to empathize, to be able to understand the other person's world. And so you are able to accept them the way they are. And they will not trigger those emotions, because at the end of the day, it is you who will be in that place where you are experiencing those heightened emotions. Respect for each other's rights and opinions. Everybody has a right to vote for their preferred candidate. And so if you go with that thought in mind, why would I want to fight with somebody who didn't vote for my preferred candidate? We all have rights. And so let's take care of ourselves in a holistic way. Take care of our physical health, our mental health, and our spiritual health, so that we can cope better with the losses that we are experiencing. And a few words that you can say to people or even to yourself, by the way. If they're venting out, you may just want to use some of these words. I'm here for you. I can't imagine how you feel now that your team lost. Yeah. And maybe be ready to listen to what they're going through, because somebody probably, like I said, invested so much money and now they've lost. And that money, chances are they're not coming back. And they didn't vote for your candidate. They were, supporting the other one. Please let us just be patient with each other. Do you wish to talk about what happened for you to get more? I wish I had the right words. I'm here for you, So those are words that you can say to someone who is struggling. Of course, there are words that we need to avoid. Telling someone that they shouldn't feel that way. After all, I've heard this, it's very common, that those people don't even know what you eat, but you don't know what this person has invested. When you tell them that their candidate doesn't even know them by name, and so what difference will it make? Yeah, you don't know what this person has invested. Let's avoid using words that will cause friction, because a fight could erupt. There's a reason for everything. Yeah, and we like to use God. Yeah, let's give some respect to that. Telling someone who is hurting that God is in charge. What is the message that we are sending? God is in charge of their hurting, or so let's be careful. Yeah, give it time. Time heals. We can't say that. Stay busy. Don't think about it. How then do they get to heal if they avoid? Just move on. There are certain words that we should avoid saying. just being present is good enough for you to be able to work with yourself or with somebody who is struggling with loss. And as I said, whatever we are talking about today does not only apply to managing your loss during elections, it is holistic. Some apply to managing and understanding what's going on with you when you are experiencing loss and when you're experiencing grief. There are things that you will experience, there are stages that you will need to go through, and so just the awareness is good enough. And so, as I end, Martin Luther King said that it's only in the darkness that you can see the stars. And if there's no darkness, then how do you get to see the beauty of those stars as they're twinkling up there? I want to end on that point, and I want to thank all of you for making time to attend today's webinar. I hope it has been beneficial. And so I can see it's about time, 2 o'clock. I want to imagine that there could be some comments, some questions, and even contributions. And so I would want to leave this window for questions and comments. George,
Thank you
I want to give this back to you. I hope you can also feel free to write on the chat so that if there's anything, we can also answer to that. Asante san. Back to you, George.
Thank you very much, Rona. That was a very good presentation. That was very good of you. I like the words that are said by Pepe Minambo. Be inspired before you expire. You have really inspired us. You won't expire, but you have inspired us. And that was a very good talk, because loss is something that every one of us has to manage. And you have really taken us through the background, the definition of terms, the types of losses, the stages of grief, what to say and not to say, and that was great. And it is now upon us for any comment or any question. Feel very free so that at least we can have a few questions or a few comments in the interest of time. I can see some kind of comment in the chat.
Okay.
Somebody is asking on whether they can be in a position to get the slides. Somebody is, there's a lot of that. You have really done a commendable job. And I think you have inspired quite a good number of us. I'm not seeing any question that have been posted in the chat. Maybe Esther, if from your side you can lead something that I'm not able to get, you can also help us. Esther, if you are there. Somebody is asking, please help on how I can break news of death of loved one to a student doing Form 4 exam.
Thank
Lorna,
you.
you can help us answer that question.
Yes,
Please
yes,
help.
yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, George. In terms of the slides, I think Esther will answer to that. Jenny Reri, news of death is not easy. And so it will depend. Sorry? Let's mute. Thank you. Okay, so breaking the news of death is not easy, and it will all depend again on who has died. Remember the level of attachment that I mentioned earlier? This student who is in Form 4 will need to understand or know who is this that has passed away. I know the Form 4 comes in because it's also a critical time for them. They're doing exams, but they need to know that a death has happened. And so usually someone close can be the one to break the news. For example, and I'm just using this as an example, if it is a parent who has died, Was it anticipated? Was the parent sick? And so you can maybe, for example, go there as the other parent if you can, or somebody who is within the family who they are sharing the loss with. And you may, even as if the person was ailing, when they see you in school, they know, they can already tell that something has gone wrong. And so just letting the person know that I have news, it is good to do it in person, please. I have some news which is not good. You know that this has been happening and we have lost whoever it is that you have lost. And be there, be present, so that as they look for that person to embrace, you are going to be there ready. Passing the news on through the school sometimes is not very sensitive. And this needs to happen very fast because you don't know who else has spoken to them. So I hope that makes sense. Being present, being very sensitive about how you deliver the news. I have some bad news, or I have some news that is not good about, they will be the ones to even ask you, what has happened? What has happened? And then you can explain. Okay. That question was asked by somebody. I hope I've answered that. Jenny Reri, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Rona. And there was an addition that the person who had died was a grandmother. And I remember, and there's another question on the same, but now it is on helping somebody who have lost a job, who is almost going into alcoholism. How can you be in a position to help such kind of a person?
Thank you. Again, like mentioned, grief counseling is important. And so when somebody loses a job, the magnitude of the change can be overwhelming. And so not waiting until the point that they have gone into alcoholism to try and resolve. And so as Amani, we also respond to such needs where an organization probably is going to lay off people. We go in there and prepare them so that they're aware that the change is real and the change is happening. We take them through anticipated loss or anticipated grief. The counseling then takes that process of dealing with this thing that is coming, this change that is coming, and empowering you on how then do you move forward. Unfortunately, not everybody gets a chance to do that. And so now this person has reached a stage where they are starting to use unhealthy mechanisms to cope. We need to bring them on board, convince them. Usually, if you can get hold of the person who is close to them, convince them to bring that person to session, and we walk you through. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna. Very good insight. Other question, if you lose marriage, how do you communicate with your children? And there is also another question, is it possible in the stages of grief to find that one has gone through denial, anger, and without going through bargaining and depression, and you find you have accepted?
Okay. Yeah, it happens. We said it's not linear. The stages are not linear. And so you may feel that you have not gone through the stages, but unconsciously you have. You have gone through those stages. And so some of us, depending on the level of attachment, again, how were you attached to this person or this object or this job? Yeah. How is it for you now not being called Mheshimiwa? How is it now that you are now without a parent or without a spouse? How do you move on? So the stages are not linear, but we go through them. And so probably even as you are reaching the acceptance, it may not be acceptance. And this I'm just saying. So you'd have to come in for counseling for us to know, have you reached acceptance or you have totally blocked what is happening, right? And for the other question, how do you, George, which was the other question? About marriage?
is how to communicate to the children about the divorce, or even the separation.
I love that question because a lot of us don't imagine that children will get affected when there is a separation or there's a divorce in terms of at the parental level. And so their life is going to change. You need to be able to tell them in a sensitive way. As the people who are at that level, the parental, that is where the separation is happening. And so again, I would not want to overemphasize, but it's important to go for counseling. There's a way that these children will be told what is happening. And while they're there, we also see who is this that is very affected. But they need to know that something is going to happen, something is changing, reassuring them, even if you're not going to come to counseling, that parents are not separating. We are not separating because you made a mistake. Children often blame themselves. So they blame themselves because maybe I was not a good girl or a good boy. That is why my parents are separating. But they need to understand that, yes, sometimes even parents are not able to cope with each other, but we still remain your parents. We are only separating from each other, but we still remain your parents. So again, counseling is important. Very key in handling day-to-day issues, life's challenges, life's processes, developments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good responses. And there's a follow-up question on how can I help a student whose mother died last year and now in school? She has become so rude to the teachers and even to the guardian back at home. The girl is from a single mother.
Wow. You can see the level of attachment. You can see the level of attachment.
Yes.
This girl has lost the only other parent that she knows. Her world is probably in that place where it's meaningless. And so she's angry. She's fighting for her life to find out what is this that has happened. So this girl really needs to be helped in trying to process her grief. You can see it has taken her a year. Last year, I don't know if it was the beginning or the end, but normally research says that it takes about a year to process. Children, it takes about 6 months, but there's no consensus about how long. Grief is unique. Grief is individual. And so the level of attachment will determine how you grieve this person. What is happening? What is your environment like? Are you getting the support that you need to be able to grieve? This young girl needs help. This young girl needs to be taken through the process of grieving. She's angry. She's very angry. And remember, when we talked about anger, that anger is channeled to many places. It could be to the world, it could be to the teachers, it could be to friends, and she's not even aware of what is going on. So please, if it is somebody we can work with, we would appreciate. Okay.
Thank you for good response. Another question on relationship. How can I deal with anticipatory grief related to rejection?
How can I deal with?
How can I deal with anticipatory grief related to rejection?
I'm not getting that. George, are you able to pick that one and answer that?
I don't quite get a full picture of the question on the anticipatory grief related to rejection. I don't know whether this person is already anticipating that I'm going to be rejected, and therefore she is asking, or he is asking how to handle that. Now, are you in the picture now?
I don't want to assume. That's why I may need a little bit of background. But
okay.
Like any other grief, whatever it is that we do in counseling is to help you to find yourself. What is going on in your world? How are you feeling? What are you thinking about it? And how are you behaving? So there's a lot of things that we would need to address with you. And also finding out if this rejection happens, helping you find out what then do I need to do moving forward. So this person really requires one-on-one engagement with us so that we can find out maybe that anticipatory grief is not even real, or maybe it is real. So how do we then help you to understand that, yes, life happens. Remember, counseling is about life. How do you work with life? What are your blind spots? What are the things that you're missing out? Are there any changes that you can make? So we are bringing reality home, helping you to understand and helping empower you so that you can move on with this gap that you are anticipating to happen. I don't know if I'm answering that question or if my understanding was correct. Huh? Okay.
Thank you.
We can
Maybe
take
if the
a few
person who
more.
had written the question feel that it was not adequately, I think the person has added, I mean that I have experienced rejection already. And so now I have become anxious about being rejected. So this is what I'm asking concerning anticipatory. Already it has happened. So it is not anticipatory grief.
Okay.
The person has already been rejected.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can take it offline because this would require us to really engage.
Sure.
Yeah, I think maybe because of time, we can take this offline.
Okay.
I have posted my contact there.
That's nice.
I've posted my contact there so that we can take this offline. And so again, I'm also very happy to see that the awareness is there. The awareness is there, but because of the experience that happened, it will definitely change your thought process, change how you feel, and possibly how you behave. And so this is what we would probably work with you on, and just to help you to understand that not all situations are constant. And therefore, what is this that happened then that you may want to do differently now? What is this that caused the rejection? And so that you may stop blaming yourself if you are blaming yourself, and so reconcile with that and move on, grieve for whatever happened, because it seemingly may be that you are still grieving, and so help you to process so that you can now move forward, transform, make new relationships, and just live your life. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Because of the response that you have given and even the contact so that the person can see you in camera, so that at least those things that cannot be put here, they cannot be discussed adequately. Remember,
thank you, George.
Because of interest of time, we want to end, but I can give this opportunity to any person in the management of Amani. Remember, somebody said that, I think it is the one that we are mentioned by somebody known as Havelock Ellis. And he said, all the art of living, it lies a fine mingling of letting go and holding on. You need to know what to let go and what to hold on. But to anyone in the management who may be with us, seeing Damaris, I don't know whether she is still with us, maybe just a word.
Hi, George, and hi, Lona.
Hello, Damaris. Welcome.
Great insights, Lona. I've picked some for myself.
Okay.
Especially what not to say, eh?
Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much. And I'm sure each one of us has picked something for themselves and a great learning. Thank you very much even for your presentation.
Karibu sana.
Yes. Back to you, George.
Thank you, Damaris, the manager training and counseling. That was also good having you in this webinar. And as we come to the end, this was not it's not the end of our webinar. We'll be having more and more. And thank you everyone for joining. Remember, somebody said, if you are not learning anything new, whether you are 10 years old or 80, you are old enough to die. Now we are learning something new, and therefore this will make us to continue living. Thank you very much as we come to the end of our today webinar.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Lorna.
Karibu sana. Esther, maybe you want to share about the website. Somebody was asking for the slides. Could you maybe let us know how we will be able to access that?
Yes, thank you, Lorna. You've done very well. I've also got a lot of insights. I highly appreciate. I have shared on the chat that we apologize, we don't share the slides, but we will upload the recording in the YouTube, and you can find it by searching Amani Counseling Center and Training Institute. Kindly subscribe to the channel, and once we upload, you'll be able to access the webinar. And you are most welcome to get more support, even from this topic on loss. Kindly reach us on 0722-626-590. And our website is www.amanicenter.org. Thank you, Lorna.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you.
I'm seeing Edward is in. Maybe you can greet us.
Yes.
You're welcome, Edward.
Thank you, Esther and Lorna, for that insightful webinar. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. We
Thank you,
appreciate
Edward.
you joining us. This is our finance manager, finance and administration manager. We are happy for hosting, for coming. Thank you.
Okay. So I believe we have come to the end of today's webinar. Thank you once again on behalf of Amani. We can now leave at our own pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorna, for taking us through that insightful kind of a webinar. And thank you everyone who have joined us this afternoon. May you be blessed in a magnificent way. Thank you very much.
Asante sana.
Thank you, everyone. God bless you, Amani.
Asante sana, Jane Ireri. We are happy to have you on board.
Thank you.
Amani, we are grateful. It was wonderful.
Karibu sana. We were humbled to have you on board. Thank you.
Lorna.
Yes.
There's someone with a burning question. She's requesting if you can answer.
Okay, what?
She's saying, how do I let go of my broken marriage? I have been bitter 9 years now, though I'm the one who chased the man away. And then there was another one, I think it was skipped. Adelaide was saying he lost her dad early January and she's finding it difficult to come in terms. Kindly help. I don't know if she's there or she's
I don't know if they're there or they've left. But for the sake of those who are here
for the
again.
burning one, I think she's there. You may respond. There? Yes.
Again, that bitterness, despite the fact that you are the one who sent the man away, is normal. Maybe there's some regrets there. And there was good reason, or at that point in time, you felt the reason to separate and send the person away. So you are going through the normal process of grieving, maybe. Again, like I said, some of these things we don't have standard answers for them. So we would have to help you process them in a one-on-one session for you to be able to get a better understanding of what is happening. But you seem to be going through what we would call prolonged grief because of that loss, in as much as it came from you, or you're probably bargaining and wondering, if I had done this, maybe I shouldn't have chased them. So the guilt is accompanying the decision that you made. I may not be able to give you a direct answer, but we've shared our contacts. Please feel free. We also offer online counseling, so you can call us anytime. I've shared both my contacts plus the one for Amani. Give us a call and we'll give you directions on how to find the answers that you're looking for. Thank you. Thank you for raising that. Esther, there was somebody else who talked about their father.
Yes, Adelaide had lost her dad early January, and she is finding difficult to come in terms. Yes.
Yeah, again, January is not too far away. And so the grief is still very real. The loss is real. Again, Adelaide, I don't know if you're there. I hope you are hearing me. Grief is complex. And so it's important to allow yourself to be supported so that you can grieve in a normal way, in a healthy way, and come to terms with what has happened. So please reach out. And what I would say is, again, know that it is normal so that you are also not blaming yourself. And people will be telling you different things at different times. Yeah, they'll tell you things that we should not be saying. So reach out to us. Let's see how we can help you. And as I said, January is just the other day. So it is normal.
I'm seeing there's a request here. Jane Ireri is saying, Amani, please consider repeating this topic on losses. Seems many people need your help on this area.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Jane. We've taken note of that. We've taken note of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow, beautiful, Lorna. Thank you so much. May God give you more grace to support more.
Karibu
Yes.
sana. Thank you. Thank you for your support too. Yeah.
Yeah, it has come out so well.
Thank you. Thank you. I know our focus right now was on elections, but like you rightfully say, Jane, loss is bigger than just the election. So it would be something we would want to consider. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you have seen it. Yes, it did trigger in so many areas.
It has.
Arranging the losses.
Yes.
And I know I am one of the people who processed through Amani the death of my late mother, which took me 16 years.
Okay.
And until I came to Amani and I was taken through by a counselor, which also really made me enroll for counseling, and I trained with Amani. It really put me down for 16 good years until my 17th year is when I found help from Amani.
Okay.
So I can imagine how many people are also waiting out there and they are not able to reach out to their potential because they are stuck somewhere because of the loss and grief.
Very true.
Yes, you are doing a good job. We are really happy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that motivational feedback, Jane, and also for sharing your story. And for affirming the work we are doing.
Yes.
It makes us want to continue even better.
And I am in Maua where there are no counselors.
Wow. Yeah, but we are still reaching people even in Venezuela because of the virtual counseling. Let's not cut ourselves off or lock ourselves off.
Yes.
It may not be the preferred way for some people, but at least let's give the help where we can.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we truly appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I really appreciate.
Asante sana. Okay, so George, is it okay if we close the meeting, the webinar now?
Yes, I think it is okay. We can close the webinar.
Okay.
You have done justice to the topic.
Asante sana. Thank you also for your support. Really appreciated. Okay, all right. Goodbye, everyone. Asanteni sana. God bless, and let us continue to remain peaceful even as we wait the outcomes of the petitions that are going on. Asante sana.
Thank you.
Bye, Esther. Bye, George.
Thank you all for
Bye.
joining.
Asanteni sana.